very good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the very kind introduction, Shubham. I'm based in the UK, so I'm on the East Coast in a beautiful county called Lincolnshire. It's a rural county, it's a university town, and I work at a university right now. So it's a real pleasure to be in an educational institution. It's absolutely marvelous. There is so much to do and learn at an educational institution. It's my first stint at one, so it's something that I'll talk about as we go along as well. So I left IMT in 1995. Seems a long way back, but again, seems like yesterday because IMT was such fun to be at. It was a wonderful 2 years. It provided a brilliant grounding to what we are today and what we learned over time. So like I heard Kushal say as well, I heard him for about 20 minutes. It's the opportunities that you can grab which are going to be most important, but I think he's driven that point home a lot. So I'll move on, from there. And what I want to talk to you, and Shweta, if you don't mind, darling, would you run my slide for me since I cannot
Sure.
present?
Sure, ma'am. We have the IT team coordinating.
Thank you, darling. Thank you. Let me know when the slide is up so that we can, go synchronously through that. Okay, so what I want to bring to this new incoming batch today is what I've learned over the last 25, 26 years that I've been working. And I thought there's no better way than to bring it, just like Kushal did, bringing some experiences to life. What does it mean when we actually go out and work? What are the few things that matter? And most importantly, topically, what matters today? Now, remember, you are going to be graduating in a world that looked different from the world that we graduated in. You're going to be joining a world that has a different dynamic from the one that we worked in or even worked in a year and a half ago. So there's a wonderful term called VUCA. Yeah, if you haven't heard of it, it's something you must look up, or if you are familiar with it, it's brilliant, which is a volatile, complex, ambiguous world. And I used to use the word VUCA very liberally. I used to use it absolutely liberally till the time that VUCA actually happened. And what happened in the pandemic in 2020 has changed and given a lot more respect to the word VUCA than ever before. So how do you, as people who are going to be going out into the world post your PhD-PM, how do you conduct yourself? How do you think? And how do you bring out the best in what the world has to offer is what I'm going to focus my talk on. All right. So it's called the growth mindset. And it's something which I face as a challenge day in and day out. The entire world faces that as a challenge, which is that dichotomy on whether to invest in your today or to look at your growth mindset for tomorrow. What you do in a dynamic VUCA environment is where I'm going to focus. All right. So Shweta, which slide have you already started presenting?
Not yet, ma'am. The IT team is getting ready with the presentation. They'll do that in a while.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we have asked the team.
All right. Okay, no worries. So just give me a heads up when it starts presenting, because then I'll talk through that. All right.
Sure.
In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll start talking through it anyway, because I think you're running a little late anyway on time. So I'll start talking and delivering, and then we can catch up with the slides. No problem. So, there is one fundamental that I learned. If there is one fundamental I learned in my entire work experience, I'm going to put it here, and it's on my slide too whenever it comes up. But it's a wonderful quote that I want to share with you today. And if you understand this quote along with me and you can follow it, it's a little deep, it can make a significant difference of the kind of responsible manager that you launch yourself into the world as. And it says, stay with me, everything that can be counted does not necessarily count, and everything that counts cannot necessarily be counted. Okay, I'm going to say that again. So everything that can be counted does not necessarily count, and everything that counts cannot always be counted. So the difference between us running behind metrics, us running behind revenue targets, us running behind achievements, KPIs, is all very good, and we need to do that. And that's what defines success in a lot of places. But do remember that if you do it without doing the things that count, then the way you project yourself or see success can be very, very different. I'll also tell you that, if you do things that count, the money and the counting and the success will follow. Now, this is a fabulous fundamental which will keep you true to yourself, will keep you very centered, and will still make your revenue targets or whatever you're after get met. And it's a fabulous, philosophy to live by if you can, follow that with me. So a little bit about myself. I know it was there in the introduction as well, but you should know who you're talking to so that you can get the best out of us, each of us. So, I've worked across UK and India. So I started my career from the IMT campus at what was then called Sterling Cellular Limited, which is part of the SR group in Mumbai. That then morphed into what is now Vodafone. Yeah, thank you so much. I can see it presented now, Ashwita. We'll move to my introduction slide, please, which is slide 3. Next one, darling. Thank you. So just to show you a little bit of the career trajectory that I would have taken. So this is I joined SR, then I worked with Bosch & Lomb, which was owned Ray-Ban then. I was in the contact lenses division. I went to Scotland. I got married. I went to Scotland. My husband's a surgeon in Scotland, was a surgeon in Scotland. But there I got a chance to work with Scottish rugby. I didn't know the art of rugby when I joined Scottish rugby. And it's a passion of a nation I took from the sea of cricket and I transposed it to the art of rugby. And it worked really well. The transferable skills of what you have being in India, being in a vibrant place like India, is unbeatable. And the way the world looks at your experience in India, or my experience in India, or what you will be, is not to be undermined. So you must, as a first point that I'll make, is that you need to be aware of the power of India on a global stage. So whatever experience you get, whatever you're doing today, whether on campus or the work experience you've done before, if you have, or the one that you'll go on to doing, remember it's a global, permeable world. And it's very, very important that you realize that, because the confidence that will give you will project you very different globally. So imagine, never thought that, the passion of cricket of a nation will ever come handy for me in Scotland and rugby. And I stayed 5 years there. So imagine it was Scotland's a very, fairly small, close country. It's quite happy in itself. And the brand was on an Indian's shoulders. And the entire nation was behind the sport. So that's the beauty of how you can actually globalize yourself. Loved it. We relocated to India. We wanted our children to actually grow up knowing India and knowing their roots. And I thought it was very important for them before they became global citizens to know and love the country they come from. So we moved to India. I got a wonderful opportunity to work with Microsoft. So I moved to IT. I was director marketing for partner engagement at Microsoft. Microsoft, as you know, has thousands and thousands of partners. So I had a section of the corporate accounts only, and that was a big, big chunk itself. So a wonderful stint. I spent another 5 years there before we moved back to the UK, where I am now. And when I came to the UK, I saw this, beautiful cathedral city where, my husband wanted to work and take his next period of life. And I said, fine. The confidence and the skills that you have and you gathered along the way are so transferable. And I'm probably a case in point that I didn't worry about moving cities or countries. You can always take your skill with you and still make a success of it. Now, in this city, in Lincoln, where I am, and you can Google it sometime, it's right on the East Coast. It's pretty. It's the food basket county of the UK. It's flat. It's where the Royal Air Force is based, where the Red Arrows are based, in case you've heard of them. The university was one of the biggest employers here. So I knocked on the door and I said, this is my background. This is what I've done, with the confidence of having IMT's education behind me, having the experience behind me. And you know what they said? We're looking at engaging with industry really deeply as a university. Would you like to join us? And that's where my journey with the university engagement started. And I must say that, every layer of experience that you add on to yourself, irrespective of the industry you go to, only aggregates. And it turns out to be a beautiful mix of what you become when you start sitting into senior level teams and leadership teams and boardrooms and stuff. It's a brilliant process. So you really enjoy it. Now, on the side of having a career post my MBA, I'm a speaker. It's a passion. It's just a passion I have of sharing my knowledge, sharing my experiences, and being very practical in what I've learned and what I've been through, especially as a woman leader. So for the women in the audience, it's a wonderful time to be a woman, like it always was, but it's a wonderful time to be a woman leader. There is a lot of platform available for you to grow, to develop. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of network. So if you can be conscious of the fact that you have that support system around you, and you aspire for what you really want to do. I'll talk a little bit about it in my slides to come as well. So I had a goal that I want to speak at a TEDx platform. I just want to, after 10 years of speaking, and I did that at Lincoln. So if you have a side wheel, as I call it, which you want to take on, you must have a passion on the side, and it's beautiful to develop that little side wheel. It adds to your main career, which is why I put the two side by side next to each other. I'll take the next one, Shweta. So, I want to start this. I'll just take the next slide, honey. I'll start this with a fundamental law of economics. Yeah, this one, which is, if any of you have studied economics, you know there is always limited resources chasing unlimited options. And here is where the story of our lives start. You will find this in life. You will find this in your professional work, that there will be too many options and there is too few resources chasing those things. Your head is buzzing with things to do, but you have only 24 hours in the day. So the idea is, how do you create yourself into a leader who's able to be most optimum with the time and resources available? So I'll flick to the next slide, please. What I'm going to talk about here is the two types of mindsets. And it all starts in the mind of the way we see ourselves. So very clearly, one is a growth mindset, but unfortunately, there is a lot of fixed mindset you'll find around you. Now, fixed mindset in its own terminology is limiting, right? It doesn't want to learn. It says, no, this is how I did things. This is who I am. Take it as it is. And, don't put in much more effort into that, although I'm successful. But on the other hand, this world of change and this what we've seen in the business world last year has shown us that a growth mindset is probably the way where you want to be. And I know being at IMT, I know being at India naturally has a growth mindset. We are very jugadu. We just want to grow. We want to do things. We want to get it done and fast. And while those are very, very good traits, be taking a conscious approach to the way you're behaving and the way you are seeking that growth and entrepreneurship may be a really good way to think about this as a growth mindset, where you're in a learning mode, where you are persevering in the face of failure, and you're able to accept criticism and move on with a more positive step. And I think that becomes really key as a fundamental to what I've learned over the last years that we've seen this change in the world happen. And it would be fantastic if you can take this conscious message home of what you may already be doing, but you know now what it's got. I'll flick to the next, please. So I've got a very simple slide on the next one. I'll wait for it to come up. Okay. So very simple slide. I just want you to reflect for a few seconds on what you see on this slide. I don't know if you have a chat box, you can put it in there. If you, but I can't see it, unfortunately, but I'll just give you a few seconds. What do you see? A lot of people see the black dot, which is, yes, it's there. The black dot is there on the slide. However, that space is taken. What's available to you is the white space, which is not yet taken to do your bit. So the message in this is that create your space with a growth mindset, because it is available. It's for nobody to show you that it's there, but it's for you to go and take it. It's a wonderful way of looking at a very simple idea of seeing what the others don't see, or seeing beyond the obvious. And that makes a wonderful starting point for a growth mindset of where you would like to take yourself. I'll flick to the next one, please. So very often in the context of, especially being a woman leader, and this is a well-documented research concept, that there is something called a glass ceiling. And there is, of course there is. We see it every day, and it's research, it's documented, and it's fine. There may be a glass ceiling. Glass ceiling is the barriers that other people may put on you at times. Now, this is not necessarily limited to women. I will also extend this argument to men, that there may be times when you feel others are stopping you from doing what you want to do. And I heard Kushal talk about it as well in the brief bit that I heard from him, which is cut your own path, make your own way. However, there's another way to look at it, and that's the one that I advocate when I speak at various forums across the world. And it's on the next slide. I call this the sticky floor, which is diametrically opposite to the glass ceiling. Yes, there's a glass ceiling, but if you're conscious that there is a sticky floor on which you are perhaps standing sometimes, and the power to get off that sticky floor is in your hands, no longer in somebody else's hands, then you have the power to make that change. such that you're able to, and I'll take the next slide, please, on this, you're able to remove self-limiting barriers that stop you from being capable. I'll take one more click on this slide, please, which is from an external force that's stopping you, you are going to an internal control of what you can do. From blaming others or saying I'm not allowed to do this, you're actually taking charge of what you're doing. So getting off the sticky floor is a beautiful concept that says, theek hai, sab log kar rahe hain, jo kar rahe hain. Jo rok raha hai, I'm going to make my way. But is there something in my control? Yes, there is. We have the ability to get ourselves and ignite ourselves. And that bit can really make for a powerful starting point. And especially when you're younger in your career, when you're starting your career, even if you've got work experience, you may find sometimes people say, no, this is not for you, or this is not age appropriate, or you're too young to do it. Really, challenging that in diversity and inclusion, including age and experience, is a wonderful place to start, which is, why can't I? It reminds me of it at Microsoft. They had included young graduates who were taken on to Microsoft and infused them into the boardrooms. So can you imagine being a young graduate or an MBA graduate coming out of IMT and getting inducted into the boardroom? Oh, we were shocked. We were here 20 years experience and, senior this and senior that. And then suddenly this graduate comes and sits in the room. And we're like, what's this? It made us all very uncomfortable. And the graduate didn't speak very much, obviously, because they're listening and they're learning mode. But when they spoke, I'll tell you, they spoke about things that we couldn't speak about. They had a different perspective. They had a different knowledge. They had a different lens in life that we really gained from. And it took a few months and a few rounds and a few cycles to know how important it is to get that diversity and inclusion perspective, even in places where it's uncomfortable. So be sure to be able to make your mark, to ask for what you want, and to really get off a sticky floor and challenge things that are put in your way. So I think that for me works really well, because there's this beautiful Kabir Doha on the next slide that we just got a quick view into that I absolutely love. It's on my TED Talk as well. If you want to hear my TED Talk, by the way, it's on YouTube. So if you do Ruchi Aggarwal Sticky Flow, it'll come up. It says, "Jaise til mein tel hai, jo chamak mein aag, tera sai tujh mein hai, tu jaag sake to jaag." Which is just like a seed has oil in it and a flint stone has firepower. Your own awakening or your own effort lies within you. Realize it if you can. It's there in you. So if you just do another click on this slide, please, that interpretation will come up for those of you who may not be very comfortable with Hindi or Kabir's level of Hindi. It does take a little doing, but that's another tip. Kabir's dohas are amazing. I love them. I don't know if there are any more people within this who share my passion, but if you do get a few moments, flick through a few of them. I mean, they're beautiful couplets. They're amazing, very deep. And God knows that through the ages, they have held true. It talks about relationships, friendships. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. So I can see a lot of thumbs up. So that's great, which means we've got more followers here as well. Fabulous. So these are all things that we learn from in life, and if we incorporate them into our life, it can make for a very, very powerful package. So I'm going to flick to the next slide where I have a book recommendation for you. All right. This is written by Vijay, Vijay, who's a distinguished professor at Dartmouth. You would have heard of Tuck School of Business, and also at Harvard Business School. I don't know him personally, but I've been following him for a while. And he has taken out this book on the 3-box solution. It's not a new book, but I discovered it a few months ago. Now, to me, this was important because this book and the core model in which what he professes in this book talks to me about the growth mindset that I have been looking at over the last 18 months, especially since we came into this pandemic. So let me take you through this on the next slide and stay with me as I elaborate that a little bit. Okay. Now, let's first flick to the bottom right, which is box 1. Box 1 talks of the present. What is happening today with the current resources, the current situation, and the current priorities that you have? On the left is the past, which is box 2. What has become irrelevant? Things have changed. Geographies have changed. Technologies have changed. Your priorities have changed. Your financial situation has changed. That you need to shed. Because if you don't do that box 2, you will never be able to go to box 3, which is what lies in the future for your growth, for your invention, for your innovation, for your ability to ride the wave. Okay, I'm going to talk about it a bit more. Now, this model, to me, although it was presented in a business context, when you think, and I want you, each of you on the call, while I'm talking through this, to in your minds process your personal lives as well. Okay, because at the end of the day, we don't leave our personal lives at home when we go to work. They say, bring all of yourself to work. Give your whole self. Your personal and professional cannot be taken separately in a particular way. You bring your personality to work. Hence, the present is about how you utilize step changes in efficiency improvement, right? We all want to improve, but what we call innovation is not actually innovation, because innovation lies in box 3. What we call in step 1 innovation is actually delta steps of improvement, Kaizen, Six Sigma, things that we do to improve the current. And in our lives or in our professions, you improve a process, you improve you solve for a challenge, you make something more efficient, or you provide for something which wasn't there. Those are all optimizing the present. Don't confuse that with innovation. Because in box 3, what innovation is about riding a wave of the future, which is disruptive. Something which you can do with changes if you look. Now, again, I'll go back to Kushal because I heard him speak. What he talked about again was what they did was that he talked about coming against the wall of people saying, no, this won't sell for this price, or this is not there, or this market doesn't exist, or the third tier market doesn't exist, third city level market doesn't exist. That is the future of it. If they saw it and they believed in it and they saw how to ride that wave, they disrupted the present and went into the future. However, to do that and to take that risk, you need to shed something from your present. Because remember the first law of economics slide that I ran? There are only so many ways to do it, but too many options of what you need to do. So good companies, good personalities, and successful people, to my mind, again, this is my interpretation of this, follow this model. Optimize your present because there's no risk in it. It's comfortable. It's great to be here. Shed what you don't need in the past and keep an eye on the future. What happens in the pandemic, and it happened here as well. I'm just going to see the time that we're okay with it. It happened here as well at the university. When the pandemic struck, everybody shared all the costs, all the expenses, and put it all into teaching. Teach the current students today because that's the biggest source of revenue. However, my role as head of business development, I'm director of business development for the business school, which means I'm in charge of income from non-UGPG level students, which is professional consulting, professional educational contracts, etc. That part was cut down. Now my role is in box 3. The teaching role is in box 1. That struggle between continuing to think of box 3, even in a pandemic, is what made me look at this solution. And that's why I wanted to share it with you, that it's a live, current issue, and one that I hope not, but one that you may step into. We don't know how this pandemic is going to pan out. We are just trying. In the UK, the world opens up from tomorrow. But let me tell you, we are not saying there won't be a third wave. It's very likely there will be some issues already. The number of cases gone up. My husband's a doctor, and he can see the hospitals filling up again because people are opening things up. So we don't know how things will happen. So if you get this mix between, without letting go of your future, even in a time of VUCA or crunch or complexity, hold on to the ability to do both, to secure your current, but keep an eye on the future. Don't give up and cut off one part of it, because then that won't take you into the future. I'll give you some examples on the next slide very quickly. Okay. So let's look at the next slide, where Microsoft, okay, where I worked. Now, Microsoft, you all may be familiar with the story. They had a desktop on every desk as the mantra for many years, 20 years. Yeah, Steve Ballmer, who was the CEO at the time that I was there as well, halfway through my tenure, wanted a desktop on every desk, which they did. But guess what happened? During that, being obsessed about the box 1 being desktop on every desk, the world moved to the cloud. Cloud computing came about. Things went on the cloud. And guess who took the share of that revenue? Google and Amazon, right? They went way ahead. Halfway through my tenure, Satya Nadella came on. And there was a change of guard for a reason. It was about being able to be agile with a large organization, despite being very successful in what Steve Ballmer did. That's a typical example to me. Then, of course, Microsoft caught up. I mean, why will it not? It's such a Beautiful organization. But that's an example of where you get obsessed with box one, you stay in there and you miss seeing what's happening for your future. Let's take the next click, please. The next one I'm going to share with you is Kellogg's. Way too familiar a story. I'm hoping Kellogg's will come up next. Okay, fine, Apple's come up. No worry, we'll take this. So this is about, all right, let's say, thanks so much. Sorry, I put an animation there. Yeah, fine. Let's say with Apple. So Apple is in box 3, right? As we all know, yeah, it kills its product before the last one gets out of style. And famously, Steve Jobs was caught, on camera saying, "You guys think research tells you what the consumer wants? I tell you, I tell the consumer what the consumer wants. They don't know what they want till I tell them from Apple what they want." It was a haughty statement to make, and that's not what we are taught at business school. We are taught to research our consumers. But guess what? Continuously box three thinking is what some organizations like this do. Before you've even got your money's worth of your one version, you've got the next with features you didn't even know you needed. But that's how it works in box 3. But they're a typical company of a very, very high focus in box 3. We'll take the next slide. Next click, please. Kellogg's, on the other hand, was one example which I have seen when they came into India with a cardboard box of cold cereal with cold milk and trying to sell that into Indian homes for breakfast. It can't work, right? Because the Indian family eats differently. Yeah, we are maka khana, we are ghar ka khana, we are garam khana, and that's what starts our day off really. So so when you go to the mess, and I heard the mention of the mess committee as well, do ensure you get that garam khana in the morning before you start your day. So let's hope we get more than 10% traction of you waking up in time and making that effort. But this was an example where when they entered the India market, they thought they could take their box 1 and go into a new market, which is a new way of looking at box 3. It completely failed. It didn't work because you needed to shed and adapt and adopt to where you're going in before you think you can make a success of it. So I'll take the next slide where I'm going to talk to you about a model, and I'm going a little bit fast here because I'm conscious of your time. Shweta, I was given 7 to 8, but we obviously started late. It's 7:56 right now. So how do you want me to, are you all okay for time, or can I take 10 minutes more?
Yes, ma'am, sure you can.
Sure.
Okay, I hope I'm not holding you all back from anything else. Yeah, the last thing I want to do is delay you all for what you're doing. Are you okay with that? Yeah?
Yes,
Sure,
yes.
ma'am.
15 minutes for sure. No worries, ma'am, on that part.
Fabulous,
So
fabulous.
please.
Thank you. Sorry to the audience. I just, got my slot late, so I had to start late. All right. So let's talk about this model. It's a beautiful one. If you get it again, you will gain something which, we learned over many, many years. It's called 3 confidences. Let's flick to the next slide. Next one, please, Shweta. And in this, I'll go click by click. Okay. So just do one click first. All right. Okay. So there are 3 types of skills that we all carry or will carry with us. All right. First is technical skill. If you're a finance guy, how good a finance professional are you? If you're a marketer, how good a marketer are you? Are you an HR professional? Do you know the laws and the rules around people management? That's your technical core skill. The second one in the pink circle is a relational skill. How do you view your own self-regard? How much value do you have for yourself? Okay. How are you feeling within you? Very important. And third one, the blue circle, is the influential skill. How do you take people along with you when you are trying to impact and influence a change, a move, a decision, or just something which needs to be optimized in the current? And just give me one click, please, Shweta. When the 3 come together is when you form your professional whole. So be aware of these 3 as I take the next slide, and just a single click on that will be great. So they conducted a survey in saying, huge, massive survey in the US, and I've just picked this up from Microsoft, so it's all courtesy of some training at Microsoft that I did. Now that the 3 skills that are there in you need to be obviously in some measure. I want you to think for a few seconds to yourselves and make a note of it, no cheating. which skill do you think is the most important in the professional world that you will be stepping out into? Technical skill, influential skill, or relational skill? Just in your minds, pick one. 3 seconds. Done? Okay. Shweta will take one click, please, so I can show you the results. Okay. So that's what the survey said. That's what people at work said. That technical is very important, but guess what? That's almost hygiene. You need to be a good engineer if you want to rise. You will need to be a good marketer. You need to be a good digital marketer. Relational is assumed to be a part of the most important one, which is influential. People. You may have the best idea, but if you cannot take people along with you, that idea is as good as not being there. Okay, so the ability to make a powerful connect with people and take them along with you on a journey becomes, according to the survey, again, there's no right or wrong in it, but I think it's important, having lived 26 years. I agree with this, that technical becomes very, very basic and hygiene. Relational is important, but that's for you. The most important one is the success is influential. Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you agree, or you get it, or you understand how important it is to be in this sphere of working with people. There is nothing we can achieve alone. Nothing. If there's one thing that I've learned, the collaboration is the most important. Partnerships, people, even allies at work. Remember, we all don't work in silos. You need allies. You need friends. When I say friends, I don't mean dosti. I mean professional friends who believe in you, who trust you, who are able to see the value you bring to the table. And that is what influential skills really talks about. So we'll go to the next one, please. You would have heard about this many times, right? That you are the CEO of Me.Inc. So there is your personal brand that you right now are crafting. You know, for us, we have crafted it, possibly right or wrong, whether we succeeded or failed. You know, we've been here 26 years working, and there's nothing much I can change. I can, but a bulk of my career rise is finished. You are at the start of your cycle if you're conscious of the fact that you can create a brand. Let's go to the next one, Shweta, which says a very, very beautiful one that says, you are the storyteller of your own life, and you can create your own legend or not. So how are you consciously creating your legend from now, from the time that you are starting your journey? Some of you already have work experience. I'm still calling you starting the journey, because what IMT will do to you, what this kind of education will do to you, is mind-blowing. Don't look at the theories and say, ye theory ka main kya karungi or kya karunga. You'll realize that the application of that theory in real life, without your even realizing it sometimes, is super duper handy. Super duper good. So take every boring theory that you learn in the classroom with a lot of respect, because it's going to stand you in really, really good stead. I'll take the next slide, please. So it's a beautiful Dr. Sears quote. I don't know if you do Dr. Sears or read it. It says, "Today you are you. That's truer than true. There's no one alive that's youer than you." Simple, sweet, alliterative, but so true. No one like you. God hasn't made a second one. So if you realize that and you work with it with a growth mindset, you then, I'll do the next slide, please. You are then, if you're your authentic self, then you have no competition. But remember, the real word there is authentic. You cannot fake or feign to be anybody for very long. So your building blocks of what you become defines who you become in life. So be authentic, be true, don't fake it. You cannot for very long. When times are different, when challenges come in, that will go away. Your true self will come out. So if you're an authentic self, you are very, very unique as you are. So be confident in that and work through life. So we'll take the next one, please, because not everybody sees things the same way. Now you look at this diagram, what you see here. There's light thrown on the cylinder from two different angles. The same cylinder, but guess what's projected? It's about what you see and from what angle you see it, because you are unique. You don't need to be following what others do, because your own self is so good, is so key, that is what makes a lot of sense. I'll take the next slide, please, and stay on that for a few seconds. Now, I want you to reflect again. What do you see in this picture? Again, I wish I could hear you talk. I wish I could interact. Maybe someday I'll come to IMT and we'll do this in person over the next 2 years that you're going to be there. What do you see in this picture? Think to yourself. Okay, you see sheep, maybe some type of an animal. And what's that animal doing? Okay, it's a beautiful process to do it in person. I'm sorry about this, and I can't even see your faces. I wish I could. But you can give me a thumbs up if you're just, working through your mind. Just keep giving me, because that's the only thing I can see. So yeah, give me a thumbs up if you're thinking about it. So this animal is going through some sort of a gate, and they're pouring through a gate, right? Yeah. Yes, Anchit, yeah, I can see your comment now. Oh, good, I can see comments. If you throw comments in, I can see it. So yeah, what are the animals here doing? They're pouring through the gate. Let's take the next slide. The gate does not have a fence around the perimeter. Did you notice, or could you notice, that there is no fence, but they're still pouring out from the gate? Because these fences that we believe are stopping us from moving or progressing are built by ourselves often. We feel there are barriers and fences, and so let me shove through this gate, but there are no fences. So this is typically called the trap of thinking, okay? Which is, we think, you would have heard the word imposter syndrome as well, very, very common. We think, but it's not there. Then why do we think? So let's free ourselves from this and say it actually possibly is not a barrier when we can achieve something. And I can tell you, having lived through so many years of working, that there will be barriers. Of course, there will be. It's not always there's no fence. There will be fences. Then you need to find that gate. But when there are no fences, don't assume they aren't, that they are there. Okay, so the ghosts of our mind shouldn't play out on us. But when there are fences, I have another analogy for it. It's like water flowing down a hill, a river flowing down a hill. There will be boulders, there will be stones, there will be pebbles. What does water do? Boulder hai, let me go around it. Pebble hai, let me go over it, bounce over it. Okay, so jab fence hai, find that gate. Jab fence nahi hai, why assume it's there? Okay, and this comes out very commonly in work life, that you may not even realize that you're doing that, but if you're consciously doing it, this is an example of off the sticky floor. You can get yourself off that sticky floor if you actually assume that the fence is there, then you'll stay stuck. Okay, we'll go to the next one, please. And I'm nearly at the end, because I know I've taken a time and you had a very, very long morning, because this says a ship is safe in the harbor, right? But is that what a ship was built for? Was a ship built to be in the harbor and languish? Or was it built to sail and rough out the seas? You are the ship. You were not built to be in a safe haven, to not take risks, to not go and do things where people haven't gone before, to cut new territory, to charter new paths, to innovate, to think, to live, to share. And importantly, remember, bring people along with you, because good leaders bring people along with them as they grow. Open the door for somebody else. When your door is opened, look back, open the door for someone else. So being selfish in leadership is a very, very common thing. But I think, remember the counts and counting I told you, that if you do what counts, the counting will come. You will sleep well, you will do well if you know that you're doing good for others along with your own journey. So don't forget to bring others along with you, to pull up that colleague, to pull up, that group you have access to motivate others if you have found your mojo. So it's really, really good to be conscious of the responsible citizen that you are going to be in the corporate world, along with being a competitive citizen. So there are 4 traits of leadership that I figured in the last year that we've all been through business, that really matter to businesses and that keep leaders awake. And I'll share it with you, just the 4 names right now. But we can do a session on it sometime if you wish. One is resilient leadership. Leaders have not slept at night thinking, how can I be a resilient leader to weather the storm? Second is responsible leadership. How can I be a more responsible leader, myself and for my organization? And these are things that have played back to me through a platform I launched called Resilient Lincolnshire. If anyone's interested, you can Google Resilient Lincolnshire from the Lincoln International Business School, and you will see all the webinars that we conducted on finding out these 4 themes. The third theme is emotional leadership. How do you take people and organizations' emotions at a time like what we all experienced? And the fourth one that kept leaders awake that I found was technological leadership. How do we now leverage tech? We're doing that today, right? I couldn't log in through what I was supposed to, but I've moved. How do you empower people? How do you take care that the people who cannot access tech for some reason are not excluded from conversations? Be an inclusive leader. Be one that embraces everybody and does not talk only to the privileged. So be conscious, be aware, keep your mind open to including everybody as you go along. And I will tell you one thing, that being in the UK, being a socialist society that it is, it's not as capitalist as India or the US is. they are very empathetic towards people. Of fairness, of inclusion, it's unbelievable of the lengths they go to make sure everybody's included in any decision. Of course, people also here have a voice, so if they're not included, they'll give it back to you. So that fear of repercussion is there, but it is a very inclusive society. And so, if you expose yourself this way, you learn different perspectives. So I try and take the best from my Indian roots, the innovation and jugaad that India taught me in my many years, but I also try and incorporate the calm, slow planning, thoughtful, inclusive processes of the West. So if you can bring those two together, guys, you have such a great base to work from. Because I'll share this next slide with you, which says it's a little, to the women in the audience. But I thought this cartoon was very, very sweet. If you play the next slide for me, please. Okay, it's look at it for a bit. It's these two, kids who find their mom's secret thing, right? It's the cape of saying, look, that's how she did it. So the girls in the audience, give me a thumbs up if you agree that there is something superwoman in there that we need to discover. We're going to get it and we're going to take to market, right? We're going to get it out there and say, that's the cape that I wear when I go to work. That's the cape that I wear in my life. And sorry for this little bit of woman flavor on this, but it's really, really important that we keep ourselves focused along with everybody else. And I would say there's absolutely any issues one has ever faced, but it's good to know what you can achieve. And I'll go to the very last slide for this particular session. It says, you can't go back and change your beginning, right? We can't. It's done what's done. You can start today and script your end. So you have the power to script your story here on going forward. What you've done is brilliant in your run up to here. That's why you're here, because you've been picked by IMT. But what you can do right now is script your end. And I'll take one click, Shweta, on this, and that should be me, which is just to, if you just give me that one click, please, on my slide, and that should finish things up, which is just to thank you. And I'll leave my contact details there. Of course, your committees, they're very, very active, and I'm so proud of what IMT has done. And the way you're holding the alumni together, the alumnus together, is just marvelous. So well done to the professoriate, well done to the the academics in there, well done to the students who've always been producer. I call you as student as producer at IMT, because you are producing content all the time, and your engagement is as passionate as it was when I was there 25 years ago. And well done, kudos, and I'm very, very proud to be an IMTian. So thank you so much for bearing with us today. And I don't know, I'll let the organizers arrange whether, if you can stop the slide share, darling, then I can see the people, at least some of them. But it was a pleasure speaking to you. So I'm good to take the cue from you all, whether you want questions or not. Sorry, I can't hear anyone. Is anyone speaking?
Vinayak sir, you are not audible.
Shubham, if you have questions, then we can direct to Ruchi
Yes, sir.
ma'am. She can respond quickly. Yeah.
Yes, sir, we have a few questions. So, ma'am, it was a really inspiring presentation, and there was a lot of wisdom that we all could see there. Ma'am, a question from our end. As an educator, what are some of the industries that you feel business school graduates should focus in a post-COVID-19 scenario? Just your thoughts on that.
Okay, industries, Shubham, I heard you say industry. I'll actually turn this conversation a little bit, if you don't mind. Don't focus on industry. Don't focus on industry. Focus on skills. What skills are you bringing to the table, irrespective of industry? Now, you saw my career trajectory as well, which is transferability of skills is most important. So there is the World Economic Forum skills list, right, that you take a look at. Now, that is so good, because if you focus on skills, what skills am I getting? How transferable and global are they? That is a better list to focus on than industry. You can then apply it across industry. And remember, some industry, rises at some point of time, some doesn't at some point. But I'll tell you, technology is going to be a base, obviously, of a lot of industry, irrespective of industry. Even things that we didn't think of. Agriculture. So Lincolnshire is very, very big in agriculture, right? It grows potatoes, it grows cauliflower, it grows 35% of UK's food comes from one county. Now, imagine even in agri-tech is a very big research area at the university. So the University of Lincoln, for example, has created these pickers, these robotic pickers to pick strawberries. Now, strawberries are very squishy and small, and imagine how gentle the picker needs to be robotically. So I'm just giving you an example of how thousands of years of farming is now in smallest of things going tech. So hence I'm saying industry is not that important, the skill is important. So skills like complex problem solving, okay? How do you show and exhibit and evidence complex problem solving in your resume and in your behavior and in your experience during university so that you're employable at the end? How do you evidence collaboration? Because people skills are going to be still in vogue and very, very important. Those are some of the skills that I would encourage you to look at the World Economic Forum skills of the future booklet. It's really nice. It's available online, and it can be really useful for especially people going through a management education.
Right, ma'am. It was a really well thought out answer, I would say. Ma'am, we have one more question. Yeah, ma'am. So this came from one of our female participants. Ma'am, what is your advice to the next generation of female leaders and the top 3 things you would want them to know before they even jumpstart their career?
Okay, female leaders, male leaders, all the same things. Okay, just the female leaders need to give that little bit of more consciousness within yourself, and we do very, very well. So there's actually no difference. I just like to play on it because it is being a female leader myself, it's really interesting to talk to the women around. To the female leader, I'll say one thing: women can be pretty nasty to each other and as leaders. I'm sorry, I know the men might smile, but make sure as a female leader you open the door for other women to come along. That's a very, very important thing. Indra Nui, in one of you would know Indra Nui, of course, all of you. Indra Nui, when she was in the US, her famous interview, she says, somebody did bad in a, in a presentation, didn't really do well, came into the toilets, and the women's toilet of that woman speaker who didn't do very well, she got no feedback. They just looked at her and they sort of moved away and let her go back and do her bad thing. The man who didn't present well and went to the men's loo to wash up, the men were like, come on buddy, it's okay, come on buddy, you can pull up and pull each other along, which I think is the one thought I leave for the women leader to answer the question. And if you talk about 3 things we should do before we even go on, there's so many, but one of them I spoke to you about, which was personal brand. The second thing I'll talk to you about, which is actually a whole separate presentation I do, which is on knowing yourself and setting yourself up for leadership. That's a completely different one. So I borrowed one for this particular deck, which is personal brand. The second one is networking. Very key to not abhor the word network, but embrace it. It's a beautiful and valuable thing. And networking doesn't have to be done the wrong way or for the wrong reasons. Networking is about truly telling somebody what you can bring to the table and how they can help you, and you'll be surprised at how much you get. And the third thing I will leave behind is informal power. It's not always about being in that corner office or being on that boardroom or being in that committee. It is important to be on the committees, but I will tell you there are opportunities for informal power all the time staring at you that you need to take up. Don't always wait for somebody to give you a badge to do things. So informal power goes a long way in your confidence, in your visibility, and in your success of it. So those are the 3 things that I'll answer the question with.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I hope yes, sir.
So what session it has been, and if I can summarize it going from the morning, what it began as a parts unknown, now you can see how a known can become a transfer into the zone of known. One dot and leaving rest of the space blank. And what Vijit said in the morning, that it's a journey of knowing parts unknown. Making the inclusion really inclusive. Making those skills to be transferred right from a different context to one to another context. What a beautiful example we had. all you can see that these advice are the words of advisory that came from her. It's actually more experiential than rather than just an academic in nature. The skills you all must acquire, make industries and the context irrelevant to the extent because you will be traveling to the future where some of the things we see today may not be there altogether. So it's not what she said, being there in that committee or meeting. I would say it's a more a journey of becoming what you can become. In so many discursive ways, in so many beautiful ways, it has been illustrated by our speakers today. And what a good way to summarize and sum up it at the end. So thank you, Professor Ruchi. And I'm so glad to listen one of the MBA alums passing from this space, professor of practice, nonetheless in the University of Lincoln and a reputed university. I can tell it to you from my experience. And being into a business school in UK is more difficult, where the proposition of the business is always mingled with the propositions of society. So it's very important you exemplify that. And I again thank you from my side, from everyone who's present on this. You made the day and you made the week, sir, ma'am. We look forward to hosting you again, probably in when time allows. And I must be thankful to, I guess, I'll not like Devasi, sir, for making us to realize that there is a word that this alums of this institution have traveled and traversed. There is a wealth of learning that we are going to accumulate and bring for you this year. So thank you, sir, to you as well. And thank you, ma'am, for sparing. I know it must have been very early morning for you to get up and get into the things. There was initial technical glitch. But, you know, as Latour said, even a technology is an actor as much as we are. So we allowed technology to play its part. But what a part you played. Thank you for that, ma'am.